In this video, I'll be diving into everything that you need to know about Advantage Plus campaigns in 2025. We did a video on this in 2024, but this is an updated version as a lot has changed since. We'll be going through, should you still even be using CBOs? What's the creative volume that you should be introducing into Advantage Plus? What should the budget be? What should the structure be? And also, what about if you're a lead generation business? Because Advantage Plus campaigns are rolling out for lead gen next month. So I want to start here with the actual structure. Now, similar to the video that we made originally on Advantage Plus, you still need to be considerate of gross margin when you're segmenting or setting up the different Advantage Plus campaigns within your account. And the reason for that still stands, that if you have two different products, one priced at 50, one priced at 100, and you have 40% gross margin across both, quick PSA, if you're a performance marketer and you have 2+ years experience, you're anywhere in the world and you want to work with the very best, scroll down and click the link at the top of the description to apply for the one position that we currently have open. We currently only work with 8 to 9 figure brands. So you'll be able to work on some of the leading brands in Australia with one of the best teams globally. We have weekly training. We have a 40+ hour onboarding course. You'll be able to work alongside myself and the rest of the team. Strongly recommend. Click that link below. That means that the actual nominal dollar figure for gross margin sits at very different numbers. So on product A, it would sit at 20. On product B, it would sit at 40. So you have almost double the amount of gross profit on product B. Now, naturally, because it's a higher price product, it's higher AOV, you're going to have worse efficiency. You're going to have a higher cost per acquisition. But even with that being taken into consideration, you can see over here, the actual contribution profit here equals 0. The contribution profit over here equals 10. The issue is that if you're bundling all of the ads for both of these products into the one campaign and you're optimizing for the maximum amount of conversions, or maybe you're even using cost caps and you have a particular target CPA in there, the campaign is going to go and spend all of your money here, despite this product driving $0 in contribution profit. And the reason why it's going to do that is because it doesn't have clarity over your gross margin yet. Right now, the campaigns only have clarity over your CPA. And so this looks like the better product despite it being worse. And so you want to make sure that you are segmenting your products out into separate campaigns based on the dollar figure of gross margin. I can't stress that enough because gross margin here as a percentage on both products is 40%. This is 40% and this is 40%. I see this is a really common mistake to brands that approach us and get an audit, which is that they've seen my previous videos and they go, well, we're already segmenting in this way. You do not want to bundle products based on percentage gross margin. You want to bundle them based on the actual dollar figure of gross margin. And to add even more complexity to this, you actually want to bundle based on average order value, considerate of units per transaction on that particular product. And so it actually might be the case that this product over here, even though it's $50, average units per transaction here is 2. And so your average order value is actually $100. And then here, units per transaction might be at a 1.05 or a 1.1, so pretty much $100. And so then in this case, you would actually want to bundle these two products together because they effectively have the same average order value, they'll effectively have the same CPA, and therefore there actually isn't a need to segment them out. What about conversion optimization versus conversion value optimization? We would recommend having conversion value in the account, but only if you're at large ad spends of $70K per month plus, and we would only put 20 to 30% of your spend towards this. Now, the reason being is that CPMs end up being incredibly high on conversion value-based bidding. And so we internally have found it difficult to actually be able to ramp this up to a high percentage of ad spend. The next is, what about cost caps? Now, this is dependent on whether you're running the entire account on cost caps or not. And so if you currently aren't running cost caps in your account, you need to make a decision, which is, are we going to go down the route of cost caps, and do we have the creative velocity and production system to be able to actually back that up, or do we not? If you don't have the ability to put high volumes of creative into the account on a consistent basis, cost caps probably aren't for you because cost caps end up fatiguing assets incredibly quickly. They'll go take your assets, serve it to the highest intent audience as possible. They'll achieve the CPA targets. And then unless your ad is incredibly scalable to cold audiences, which 99% of ads aren't, that asset will drop off very quickly and you need new ads introduced. If you can't do that on an ongoing basis, you shouldn't be using cost caps. If you can do that and you do have the creative system in place, maybe you're working with an agency that can support really high volumes of creative and can give them to you, Well, now you're in a position where you might want to transition into cost caps, but I've never seen success personally with running cost caps fractionally within an account. And so having, for example, half your campaigns on cost caps and half not, never really works. And the reason why it never really works is the cost cap campaigns end up getting priority on all the high intent audiences, burning through them, and so your adjacent campaigns end up significantly underperforming. And so you end up needing to go all in on cost caps or not all in. Now, you can run two separate ad accounts, and you can run one ad account on cost caps and one not. And this is actually a preferable structure if you're going to go hard on cost caps with Advantage Plus campaigns, because when you introduce cost caps into an account, it tends to increase CPMs on the adjacent campaigns that aren't running with a cost cap structure. And the only way to get around that is to segment them out into separate ad accounts. And so that's generally the structure that we would recommend if you're going to go down the cost cap route. Do I think cost caps are a good way to run an account? Yes. We actually run our own account under cost caps. I think it's a great way to run as long as you have infinite creative to be able to introduce into the account, or at least enough creative to sustain the spend threshold that you're after. If you can't generate enough creative to sustain spend levels, well, then you're just not going to be able to spend, and you're better off running at lower efficiency on incremental spend through non-cost cap structures instead. What about the setting at the campaign level? One of the only settings that you have at the campaign level in Advantage Plus, which is what percentage of budget should go towards existing customers. Now, the quick answer here is 0. But how should you go and actually define the audience? Because I can say put a 0% existing customer budget cap, and I've actually seen people do this in accounts, and they haven't even defined an audience yet. And so they're not excluding anyone. So the audience definition is really important here. And we have a relatively contrarian approach, which is that for your defined audience of existing customers, we put in 180-day purchases. So this is anyone that's been tracked from your pixel to have purchased in the last 180 days. We have your Klaviyo list. You could arguably just refine this down to your Klaviyo lapsed list, and you can continue targeting people that aren't lapsed. But I would generally just put the whole Klaviyo list for majority of people that are watching this. And then this is the contrarian take, which is that we also have 90-day visitors in here. And the reason why we have 90-day visitors in here is that you can go and create a custom metric in Meta. And it can be link clicks divided by unique link clicks. And we end up calling this metric click frequency. And so it tells you the amount of clicks that the average user takes throughout your ad account. And you can obviously look at the ad level, ad set level, campaign level, on whatever time period you want. On average, how many times are people clicking on ads before they purchase? What you'll end up finding in most ad accounts, unless you're high ticket, really long purchase cycle, or your B2B, etc., is that your click frequency is actually quite low. It might sit at a 1.1 to maybe a 1.6 on the absolute high end. And so what that ends up meaning is that people actually don't take many clicks to buy. They take a lot of impressions to buy. They take a lot of cross-platform impressions as well. But the actual material amount of clicks that happen within the Meta platform, it isn't a lot. They'll see a few different ads, a few different variations. Eventually, they'll get convinced to click, and then maybe they might have a second click or third click down the line, but it's not a lot. And so what that ends up meaning is that if a user's visited the website, they've already generated one of the clicks that we were after. And it's likely that maybe they'll have 1 or 2 more clicks before buying, and that's it. And so we don't need to go and have all of our Advantage Plus campaigns continuing to target these users with assets, even though they're just about to buy. They're 1 click away. And so instead, we can segment these users out into their own dedicated retargeting campaign with objection handling based assets. We can have high volumes of assets in that retargeting campaign. It really doesn't matter. And then we can focus the Advantage Plus on just cold audiences and continuing to get the first click, because the first click is what matters. And then we can go and push them into retargeting campaigns to get second and third. We really don't want any overspend here. And what you end up finding is that a lot of spend actually goes to this audience. And you can see that if you go and put it in engaged audiences, you'll see that 10, 20, in some accounts, 30, 40% of spend in an Advantage Plus goes into people that have already clicked on the website in the last 90 days. We want to avoid that if we want to grow new customer acquisition and focus on top of funnel efforts. And so we go and include it in there as well. Then the other audience definition worth considering is your engaged audiences. So what should you actually put in here within advertiser settings? Well, you can put whatever you want. It actually doesn't matter. This is purely for reporting. It's just going to show you how much spend is going to this audience. but there's nothing you can do about it. There's some really interesting things that you can put in here. An interesting thing that you could put in here is you can put lapsed Klaviyo customers. And so what this allows you to do is you can switch this audience over here to engaged Klaviyo customers only, and then have lapsed Klaviyo customers. And you effectively treat a lapsed customer as a new customer being acquired. And so you can see percentage of spend that's going towards lapsed customers, and you can also see how successfully you're winning those people back. A really interesting insight that you can actually take some action on off the back of having that data accumulation at a campaign level. And so that's a really interesting one. Another really basic one that you could put in here, and this is what most people put, is something like 90-day visitors. The issue is we're already excluding these in majority of our accounts on cold acquisition, and so it doesn't become as applicable. Now, we could change this to 180-day visitors, and so that's going to give us clarity over not 90-day visitors because they're excluded, but it'll give us clarity on the 90 to 180. And so you can also effectively look at that as lapsed visitors. So people that have visited the site, they didn't buy because buyers have been excluded. They haven't clicked in the last 90 days. And so we're really looking at lapsed visitors here. Another really interesting insight that you can actually take action off the back of: how effectively are we recouping these lapsed visitors? How much are we spending on them? Should we just be excluding them altogether? Because you might end up finding that you have lapsed visitors defined here. They're not performing well at all. A large amount of budget's going to them. Okay, well, let's actually move this into a defined audience where we exclude it out of the campaigns because there's a lot of wasted spend here. And so you want to be effectively thinking about engaged audiences as a way to gather data on a particular set and then make an action off the back of it. And so, okay, we're going to gather data on lapsed visitors. They're not actually performing very well at all. Okay, we're going to go and exclude them, and maybe we'll try and re-engage them in a dedicated campaign. And so that's your campaign structure. That's your bidding method. That's cost caps. And that's also how we would recommend structuring existing customer budget caps. Now, what about the actual budget? Well, when it comes to Advantage Plus campaigns, budget and creative volume end up becoming very entwined. So it's really the same question here, which is your budget is determined based on how many creatives you can introduce into the account. It's not just an arbitrary figure. Obviously, you've heard previously, and we have a video on this as well, which is that you need 50 conversions per week to be able to exit the learning phase, to therefore get an ad set performing as well as it should be. Now, that isn't applicable to Advantage Plus because Advantage Plus doesn't have a learning phase. It doesn't use reinforcement of conversion data as heavily as the ABO serving mechanism does. But it still is important to have enough budget to where you can reinforce into a particular audience, just generally speaking. But that is going to be underlyingly reliant on creative volume. If you have 2 ads within an Advantage Plus campaign, quite honestly, I wouldn't even run the campaign. It's very unlikely to perform well. And so you really want to have, at a base minimum within an Advantage Plus campaign, 10 plus active ads. And this goes against every SOP that we've ever had with regular ABOs or regular CBOs, which is that we always want to restrict ads to 3 to 6 ads in an ad set. 6 is the absolute maximum. 3 is really the absolute minimum. And the logic there has always been, other than just the fact that our data has always shown that that has always performed the best. We've always seen worse performance when we go above 6 ads. We've always seen worse performance when we go below 3 ads. But the theory to back that up has been that after 2 to 3 impressions, probability of purchase declines precipitously. That ad set needs to reintroduce a novel asset to that end consumer to try to get them over the line. And so you need diversity in the asset set within the ad set level to be able to show them different ads, but you don't want too many to where Meta actually doesn't effectively know where to distribute spend because it's trying to distribute $10, $20, $30, $40 a day of spend between 10 different ads, and it actually can't pick which one works. With Advantage Plus campaigns, it's actually very different. We end up seeing better performance the more ads we put in an Advantage Plus campaign, which is a dynamic that honestly was surprising because we started launching Advantage Plus campaigns when they first rolled out, just like we would with ABOs, 3, 4, 5 ads in Advantage Plus. And then we started doing some tests, introducing 30, 40, 50 ads in Advantage Plus, and performance only improved. And so you want as many ads in here as possible. Now, the second question is, okay, when do we turn off ads? And the short answer here is you don't. Meta should be distributing spend effectively, in fact, way more effectively than you'll be able to do yourself. And so you want to be very hesitant with imposing your own bias here. And you just want to be introducing assets anytime performance decreases. And so the reaction that media buyers normally have when performance dips is that they will do two things. Number one, they'll begin turning off ads. And number two, they'll begin changing budgets. And number three, they might even start changing campaign structures. None of these are really applicable in Advantage Plus. Turning off ads, well, if Meta is distributing spend to an ad, it's doing something. Okay, there's something within the mechanism of serving, there's some data set that the machine learning algorithm's taking and producing that's determining that it should continue spending on that ad. It's probably not something that you can even see. Changing budgets, you're going to have to put the budget somewhere else. And so yes, you can go and decrease the budget on this Advantage Plus campaign, but you're going to have to reallocate it somewhere else. And so you're going to have to make a new campaign with new ads. But why not just introduce those ads into the existing Advantage Plus campaign where you have all the data pulled anyway? And then you can go and change the campaign structure. And so you can look at changing it to different campaign types. But with Advantage Plus, you're actually really restricted here. You used to be able to, try a different interest, try a different lookalike. Maybe you would restructure into a cost cap. Maybe you would restructure into having more ads or less ads within a particular ad set. With Advantage Plus, there's nothing you can do. There's no direction you can go. And so the solution when performance drops off on an Advantage Plus campaign is typically to put more ads in it. And so that's why having a consistent ad creation process in place that's piping new ad volume into the account on a consistent basis is how you maintain Advantage Plus campaigns over a long period of time. And so the budget is determined by the creative volume. I could put rudimentary formulas in place and recommend them, which is that for every $50 in daily spend, you want 2 ads. So an ad per $25. And so if you're running at $100 per day, you want at least 4 ads. Now the issue is, I think the bare minimum here is to have 10 ads running in an account, regardless of what the budget is. And so even if you're only running an Advantage Plus of $50 a day, I'd still have at least about 10 ads in that Advantage Plus campaign. Now there's always outliers here, and there's always cases where you might launch less for various different reasons, but generally speaking, a 10 ad minimum. And then as you begin to scale and go to, for example, $400 a day, you want 16 active ads in here. Now, where people get this wrong and they go, you don't actually need this much creative volume, is that they go and put this kind of volume into an Advantage Plus campaign or into an account, and then they look at the spend at the ad level and they go, well, yeah, we have 16 ads in here, but of these 16 ads, there's only really one that's spending 80% of the budget. And then there's 2 more ads that are spending the remaining 20%. And then all the other ads aren't spending. And so, yeah, you can say that you need to put 16 ads in the account, but what's the point? Because 13 don't even spend. And that is the point, is that Pareto's principle always applies into every single account I've ever seen at the ad level, which is that only 20% of ads will ever get the spend. But that's why you need to introduce so many ads. Because if you go in and just introduce 4 ads into the account, there's almost a 100% probability that none of those ads will work. Your probability of success goes up as you increase ad volume because you're essentially taking more bets within the account. If you put 100 ads within the account and 10% work, well, you've got 10 winning ads now. And yet, Meta's probably only going to go and spend on 2 of them or 3 of them because they have the lowest CPA expected value. But once those fatigue, Meta will then go and redistribute spend into the next best expected CPA ad, which will be your other 3 to 4 high-performing ads within the 100 that you introduced. And so you often end up seeing when you introduce very high volumes of ad creative into an account, it has way better longevity because, yes, only 1 to 2 core ads will spend, but once those 1 to 2 core ads stop spending or the CPAs start rising because they fatigue, Meta goes and redistributes spend into other ads that then start performing after. And so that goes back to the importance of not turning off ads. You might go into an account and go, well, these 13 ads aren't even spending, let's turn them off. Well, no, 3 or 4 of them probably have really good expected CPAs, but just not as good as your current winner. But when that winner falls off, you want those ads to re-engage and be able to spend. And so you want to keep them on. And then lastly, we have lead generation and CBOs versus Advantage Plus. So when it comes to CBOs, quite transparently, we're very rarely running them anymore. We almost always see better performance out of Advantage Plus. Now, theoretically, you need to be careful here. Advantage Plus does go fairly heavy middle of funnel unless you have those heavy exclusions. The thing is, we always run these heavy exclusions and we still see better performance out of Advantage Plus. And so we lean very heavily in that direction. Not to say that we don't run CBOs, not to say that we don't test them, But I personally, from all the data that I've seen, would really be more so leaning 80% of budget into Advantage Plus and not CBOs. And then you have lead generation. So Meta has told us internally that they're rolling out lead generation Advantage Plus in Q2 or Q3 of this year. I think it will be a better serving mechanism than ABOs and CBOs. That will likely be the direction that lead generation goes in as well. Will it be as effective as regular structures right out of the gates? Probably not. There's probably going to be a slight learning phase there as they roll it out, and then as they accumulate data, it becomes a better campaign type. But then once lead generation does roll out, all of these will still apply. Okay, if you have offers that differ in nominal dollar LTV or lifetime contribution profit, you want to be segmenting them down into different campaigns. Creative volume is what dictates budget. Budget doesn't dictate creative volume. Don't turn ads off. Probably going to see a lean away from CBOs.